Welcome to episode 24 of Real Talk with a Vulnerable Angel and Friends. I am your host, Dominica May, the Vulnerable Angel. And tonight I am being joined by my regular guests, Mike and Sharad. Welcome, guys.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
And let's see, if you're not familiar with this show, if it's just your first time here, what we do is we just like to have deep, vulnerable, personal conversations, drawing from our own life experiences about topics that people tend to shy away from usually. And our topic this week is class romances. And the questions that we have provided for us are suggested by ChatGPT, but you are more than welcome to also drop us some questions in the chat and we will be happy to answer them for you. Feel free to drop us questions that are not necessarily related to the topic, but that would be preferred. Also, this is the last topic that I have planned. So if you have any other topics that you would like us to discuss in the future, feel free to drop those suggestions either in the chat or in the comments later on if you're watching not live. All right, you guys are ready to get started, or you want to have like any spiel introduction stuff first?
Any what introduction?
Spiel.
Spiel?
Spiel.
Oh, spiel.
Am I not pronouncing it the way that you?
No. It's the microphone wasn't exactly picking up the nuance of what it was that you were saying. So, like, to me, it sounded like you were saying "feel."
Oh,
It's like what?
Interesting. Okay, that's weird. Okay. Anyway, yeah, it's been a while since we've done like any small intros about who we are. If you want to do a little
If ever.
brief. Yeah. Well, we've done them occasionally. Occasionally.
Oh, okay. So, hi everyone. I'm Sharad. I am a writer, producer, and very recently, I've become a teacher as well. So, I run Shadow Scribe Solutions. We do writing for any genre, any type, as long as it's in English. We can do that. You can catch me out on Facebook, Shadow Scribe Solutions. Drop us a like and pop in and say hello. We'd lovely to be talking to you.
Yeah. I'm Mike. Everybody, Mike Brown. I'm a comedian living in New York City. Comedian, producer, and my goodness, I wear a lot of hats. My daytime job, I work as a bartender at Lucky's Bar. Of course, we all know that that is not the actual job that I have, but that's the metaphor that we're sticking with. Yeah, I work as a bartender at Lucky's Bar, and I'm trying to quit and do comedy full time, of which I currently have a television show that films live in Times Square every other Wednesday. And if you're in New York, come check it out. Come be a part of the live studio audience. And if you're not in New York, watch on Zeem, which is the streaming service that it streams on. So it streams on Zeem.
So
Nice.
cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
And if you're new to me as well, I'm an autistic writer, comedian, improviser, director, all sorts of creative hats that I wear. But right now, just live stream host. I've taken a break from all of my other kinds of creative outlets at the moment because I'm looking towards relocating. Right now, I'm living in Oakland, California, but I'm planning on relocating, so that's kind of taking up a lot of my energy. I've been feeling really exhausted this week. I'm hardly doing that much. I'm applying for jobs and watching TV. Why am I so tired?
The good thing is at least you're applying yourself, so that's probably that's great.
To a certain extent, yeah. My therapist, I saw my therapist earlier today, and she was like, "It's probably depression." I'm like, yeah, I suppose so. Because I'm in that kind of limbo state right now of like, I know I'm planning to do this thing, but I have to wait until my son finishes school because I don't want to pull him out like when he's so close to the end of the school year and like all of this kind of thing. So it's like that's kind of where I'm at with stuff. But yeah, looking forward to actually taking the steps. My steps right now are just like, let's pack away some of my collection stuff so that I can put it into storage when I have people to come through to look at my house to see if they want to buy it, because they're not going to want to buy it when it's in the state that it's in right now. So, yeah, that's about as much as I can do. Yes, Mike.
What is today's topic of conversation, Dominica?
Great question, because I forgot to mention that, I think. So today's topic is past romances. Just in some of like our earlier streams, because it's come up in questions that when we didn't have themes. When we started this, we weren't doing themes, and I decided to save on my effort of time for updating the channel stuff. I'm just gonna have a topic every week so that I can have a new title every week. So yeah, past romances is where we're going with first. You guys ready to get started with the first question?
Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Juicy. Have you ever had your heart truly broken, and what did you learn from it?
Jared, you are producing some sounds over there.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. It's very, very difficult because obviously, when you're in phases of puppy love, does that really count as having your heart truly broken? But obviously, we have the teenage romances. Those will always stick with you. They'll shape you in some way or form. But I think having our hearts truly broken, yeah, I certainly have. And I think one thing I've learned is that uh, it teaches you a lot about yourself, because obviously there'll be periods where you'll be wondering, what did I do wrong? Was it my fault? And it's something that will eat at you for a long, long time. But one thing I did learn is that it's okay to love yourself. There's nothing wrong with you per se. Just because you and a loved one had a falling out and the relationship was broken doesn't mean that you yourself are broken. And it's okay to focus on oneself and have a relationship with yourself, like rediscover yourself, wondering why you're so beautiful and why you're amazing. And yeah, and it's one of those things. So yeah, exactly. So yeah, so it's but the good thing is, one thing I've learned is that the only way you can learn to grow is when you fall, right? That's when you feel it, when you're at your lowest. That's when you can really make that change. So that's something that I will always take with me.
Dominica?
Yeah. I've talked about my heartbreaks on the channel before, or yeah. But so yes, I have absolutely had my heart truly broken. Gotten it pieced back together again, and then broken again by the same person. And
I've moved about having it broken the second time is that it already has the cracks, so it doesn't. It's not like it gets more broken. It just gets broken in the same spot, because that seam is already there.
I feel like it hurt more the second time around because, but for different reasons. Because it was like the awareness of how much, because the second time around it's like, oh, I learned then that the initial reasons for why it fell apart were not necessarily the reasons that I had thought at the time. Because getting back together, you can kind of get clarity about that understanding. So like Sharon said, like my initial reactions were about, oh, what did I do wrong? What can I do better? What can I learn from this to make myself a better person? Because I blamed myself for it, right? And then when I got back together with him, it was like, now I understood that it was less about me and more about the other person and what he was going through. And so then the second time around, it's like, oh, it's a repeat of this. And so I blamed myself less, but it hurt more because it's like I could understand what was going on because it's kind of a repeat. And I felt like the heartbreak lasted longer. And the cycle was a little bit different in terms of, because it's much more painful, but I didn't really feel like I had an easy outlet for it the way that I had. I don't know, previous time was different. But I guess my big lessons have been around how I can grow as a person, recognizing my triggers and my patterns that lead me to self-sabotage so that hopefully I can avoid them in the future or bring it up in conversation before it gets to that point where I'm going to self-sabotage. So yeah, I guess that's where I'm at with where I'm learning things, of trying to find those areas where I will not make the same mistakes as I did in the past.
Good.
For me, it was with a woman named Kylie that I met in high school. She lived in a town like an hour and a half away from me, and obviously we went to different high schools, but we met through the Mormon church, and multiple times a year for like the youth activities committee, whatever, they would have like these regional dances called youth conference, and it was more than just a dance. It was like an actual conference. It was a whole weekend. So like, yeah, you go to church, like there's like, that's a big part of it, but there's also like activities and service projects and games and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, I met Kylie at one of these youth conferences, and shared, I think you mentioned earlier, like puppy love. And that's exactly how it started. Like it was pure puppy love.
Yeah.
And I just like, it was that obsession that I couldn't like let go of. And it kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And this puppy love lasted like 14 years. Like it lasted a long, long time. And there's so much to the story. There's so much, but it basically ended when we were talking on the phone. We were like close friends. And I told her that I was in love with her, and she just didn't feel the same way. She just didn't reciprocate that back. Which is obviously, it's fine. Like no one owes you love.
Yeah.
No one owes you love. You give love because you have it. So yeah, one day we were talking on the phone, and she told me that she was dating this guy, and she had been dating this guy, and one of the things that he liked, or that she liked about him so much, was that he reminded her of me. And I was like, that's kind of a fucked up thing to say.
That is so fucked up.
She meant it as a compliment, like a real genuine compliment, but it hurt so bad.
No, I definitely see that, because it's like, well, why not be with me then?
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
If you want to be with someone that reminds you of me, why not choose me when I've already told you that I'm in love with you? What the fuck is wrong with you?
It hurts so much. And so that was the beginning of the end. That was actually the second to last time we spoke. I actually had to like say, can you hold on a second? Something's going on in the kitchen. I put her on hold for like 5 minutes, and I just cried. Cried. I came back on the phone and I said, Kylie, I'm so sorry, but there's a pipe that burst in the kitchen. I have to go deal with it. Like the kitchen is flooding. I am so sorry. I have to deal with this. So she called me back a week later, and she goes, how was the kitchen? And I'm like, oh, that was a lie. I actually broke down and cried when you said that to me, and that was the only thing that I could think to say. I'm still
Wow.
in love with you. And she goes, I don't know what to say to that. And I said, there's nothing to say. I love
Mm.
you, but you don't love me. It's not good. It's not bad. It's not right. It's not wrong. It just is. And that's kind of where we left it. And that was maybe about 3 or 4 years, maybe around 4 years. Um, before I was actually able to let her go. And that was through another friend of mine. And she was like, Mike, you got to let this girl go. You have to delete her from your phone. You have to uh, delete her off of Facebook and all social media. Like, you have to cut every tie. Even though you haven't spoken to her in like 4 years, you're still hanging on to this idea of her. And I think this is where the lesson comes into play for me is I romanticized in my imagination what that relationship with her could have been. In my entire dating life up until that point, no one ever compared to Kylie. Because how could you? How could a human being compare? Even Kylie herself would not have been able to stand
Yeah,
up to the image that I had created in my mind.
Mm.
Um, and thanks to my other friend Holly, she was the one who like told me to delete all the stuff, and like physically cut her out of my life, like with all the little things in there. But like, what did I learn from it? I learned that, uh man, you you can't romanticize things that aren't there. It's, I mean, easier said than done,
Oh yeah.
easier said than done, but you have to be able to see the forest for the trees, and you have to make decisions, because that was a decision that Holly made for me, was to
Mm.
cut Kylie out of my life, and I accepted that decision. And because of that, it wasn't it was maybe what, 3 years later, that's when I met my wife.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
mean, we all have to be primed in a certain way, and it was so unfair for everyone that I ever dated, um, because of like, they didn't know about Kylie. How could
Yeah.
they?
Mhm.
Um, but it was so unfair to all the rest, like to everyone else, because I couldn't, I couldn't like get over that, and so all those other relationships inevitably suffered.
Can
But
I ask, because you talked about, cutting all those ties on social media and deleting her number and so on. How long after doing that do you feel like you were actually able to move on? I ask this because after my most recent ex told me that he didn't see any kind of future for us, and like even his friendship, I was the one who made the decision to cut all ties, because he never unfollowed me on any social media where we were connected and stuff. So I'm like, I have to be the one that does this. But even when I did, like, it still took me forever to like be a, start to move on.
it's one of those things of like, the whole analogy that when you're walking through a rose patch, and it just hurts, and it, like, you get scratched and all those
Mm.
prickles and everything, and it's so fucking terrible to walk through a rose garden. But then when you get out of the rose garden and you turn around and you look back, all you see is a bed of roses, right? So it's a
That's
little bit of
interesting
that.
analogy. I like that.
It's a little bit of that.
Yeah.
So immediately, like, it still hurts. It's still painful, because it's like reopening a new wound, and you're digging out all of the bacteria that isn't necessarily making you sick, but it hasn't gone away,
Mm.
right? So you're opening up that old wound and you're scraping out all that bacteria. So you still have like a raw open wound, that has now been cleaned, and that new wound has to heal itself. And after it heals itself, you just kind of forget, that there was ever a wound there,
Mm.
right? So how long did it take? I don't know, 9 months, a year ish. But it was as a direct result of Holly putting her foot down and saying, "You got to cut this person out your life." So
Have you successfully avoided going back and checking her anywhere online? Because presumably you still remember like the IDs or whatever to look her up if you wanted to.
every now and again, every now and again, and I haven't done this for a long time actually. But yeah, I mean, periodically I have gone through and just kind of gotten like updates on her life. And ever since that decision was made, I have been able to see the forest for the trees. And I've been able, like, I can see clearly now the rain is gone. Um, I can see the forest for the trees and say, she was never the person for me. She was never supposed to be the person for me. But I was so clung to that idea that she was. And that was the decision that I made ever since I was a little, well, not a little kid, but like a young man. I already decided she's going to be my happily ever after. And just all those years of turmoil and anguish. Um, it's so apparent to me that we were never meant for each other. Never. Uh, yeah.
Well, how can you be if one person is not does not have the feelings?
And then there's that. Yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, like that happens all the time too, right? Where two people meet and they do have the feelings, but again, they are never meant for each other. There's that intense physical attraction. There are like really, really great times you guys can have together, but then sometimes there's that fundamental thing that relationships are supposed to be built on that just aren't there. They're just missing. And that's when you have those tumultuous relationships of cascades of yelling and arguing and hurt feelings and people being selfish and all that stuff. And ultimately it just doesn't work. And people keep coming back to each other even though it doesn't work. And it's like, you're in a toxic relationship. Stop it.
I feel like my situation was different because I felt like we had a very solid foundation and we very rarely had any disagreements. And when we did, it wasn't like that, loud, toxic clashes. It was more like shut down, don't know how to talk about it kind of thing. So it wasn't like,
that's
stupid.
part of the language that we have as partners in a relationship is that, feelings do get hurt.
Yeah. And figuring out how to sort through it. But for me, definitely once I made the decision to stop checking in on any of his social media was a lot easier for me because unfriending or unfollowing him everywhere did not stop me from like looking at his social media. But once I made the decision to stop like checking in on him, I did. I was just like, I was very good at like, nope, this is it. And it was only, so that was like November-ish, I think, early November, where I'm just like, this is done. And I've only once checked in on him since then. And that was entirely of the result of me going into my YouTube app, unintentionally, but it was his birthday and he was live streaming. And so I had like, why are you telling me that he's live streaming right now? I have not seen anything about him in my feed for ages. And so I'm just like, okay, I guess I'm tempted now. I'm just going to check in. But I was glad that I did because I'm like, okay, I've checked in, I've got the information that is relevant, and I can move on. Like, I'm like, it didn't take me back to where I used to be, where I'm like constantly, what's he up to now? What's he up to now? I'm like, okay, he seems to be doing okay. There's no need for me to follow up from here, we're done. So when I get to that state, it makes me feel better about my progress, because it's like the obsessive part where I'm just like, what is he up to? What is he up to? That's when I start to worry about myself. But if I can check in and then move on and not worry about things for another several months or so, then I'm like, oh, I'm doing better.
Yeah.
Exactly. Good.
Next question.
Next question. Unless any of our viewers, it says that we have a couple of viewers right now, feel free to drop us questions or comments in the chat. We love to have our audience interaction as well. But I will move on to our next question, which may or may not be related. Is there a past relationship you look back on differently now than you did at the time?
Yeah, Kylie.
That's why I said
never the person I was ever supposed to be with, and that is so apparent. That's it. That's all.
You already gave us a long spiel about her, or explanation about her anyway, so it's fine. What about you, Sharon?
I was in a relationship when I was in Savannah with this lovely woman called Savannah, ironically, and we had a very, very positive relationship. And looking back on it now, I think it had the potential to work. It really did. One thing I do look on back differently is, again, it takes two to tango, and I was under the impression that maybe if she fought for me, that would make things work. But at the same time, I didn't fight for the relationship either, and I made the cardinal sin of just letting it peter out. And there was no reason for it. There was absolutely no reason for it at all. And I think combinations between that and my innate fear of not commitment per se, but the fear of, what if we do get this right? What if this is the relationship and it works, and then somehow I screw this up? And it's something that it still bothers me every now and then. But I think that as you were saying, you don't like to check in with your exes. I do check in on her every once in a while, and she's doing good, and it makes me happy. Even if she's in a relationship with someone, I wish them the absolute best. And it's something that I look back on, and it makes me think that, if you do have that feeling that things could go well, don't self-sabotage. Don't do it, because obviously I'm always in the mindset that things are great, but then things don't last forever, and sometimes it's easier for you to end things before you yourself get rejected. Even though in this instance I didn't do anything, but that was the point. I didn't fight hard enough.
Yeah.
And so it's something that I look back on. And
So if you don't mind me cutting you off for a moment,
please.
Even if you do, I'm still going to double down on that. It makes me wonder, when you say that, if she ever had the same thing from the opposite perspective of, maybe I didn't do enough to save the relationship. Maybe I didn't step in, and maybe I wasn't the support that Sherrod needed. And I didn't fight for the relationship either. I just want, just kind of hearing you say that, it tends to put more of the onus of the relationship on your shoulders. But I wonder if she feels the same way, of maybe she felt that same onus as well. I don't know.
It's really interesting you say that, because when I was in ICU in the hospital, I asked a friend of mine if he could reach out to her and ask her to come visit me, because at this point I was too scared to ask her myself.
This was after the relationship ended?
Yeah, this is after. And so she came, thankfully, and she had a very, very nice talk with me. And I remember telling her, I'm so sorry that I didn't fight hard enough for you because of my fear of rejection. And she was super nice. She was like saying, listen, like it takes two. And in some ways, and to be fair, she had moved on. She was in another relationship at this point. And she actually asked me, like, if do you want me to end this relationship and we can try and make this work? And I was like, that will, I mean, that's very kind, but that would haunt me
Yeah.
because, and it might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but at some point you will resent me if I said yes. Because number one, it's not fair on this current relationship that you're in right now. And number two, I didn't know if I was going to get any better. I didn't know if I was going to be bedbound for the rest of my life. And I thought, um, I'm looking, we're looking at a relationship. I don't want this to turn into um, a carer patient relationship.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
and it's not fair on her. She has her own dreams. And I remember telling her, like, if um, the best thing I think we can do is to let each other go. And to this day was the hardest sentence I've ever had to say. But looking back on it now, I am very, very, very happy that I had the strength and the clarity to say that.
That's
So
great.
in some ways, it's the one of the very, very few things I ever did right.
I think that's one of those situations where clearly the timing, that was the right decision to make, because you never know, like in the future, timing could work out in your favor. Like maybe that relationship ends, you got better, and things could align in the future, but at that particular point in time, it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't the appropriate to do. And I do agree that it was the right call for you to make, to not ask her to end that relationship so you could
Yeah.
see that how things were going, or could go if you tried again. But yeah, there's a lot in there that I can relate to for sure. The self-sabotage aspect, with what Mike commented on, about wondering if she was thinking the same thing. Definitely a possibility. Like the relationship I talked about in the beginning, we had gotten back together. One of the things that he had said to me after we got back together is he had wondered, should he have tried harder, or should he have asked me to marry him in order for us to stay together previously, and things like that. So yeah, absolutely. It's very easy for, if the relationship meant a lot, and you have regrets about it afterwards, the other person is probably also having those kinds of thoughts or regrets, even if it doesn't like lead to something, or either person reaching out and, and talking about it. But yeah, for my answer for this question is, I would say my ex-husband is a lot more the past relationship that I look back on much differently now than I did at the time. He was someone who, I guess kind of love bombed me in the beginning, made me feel like really special and like I was different, one of a kind, and all of this like amazing stuff. And then now I look back on that sort of thing and see like this is all kind of abuse tactics in a way, to try and get me to be on his side, because he shifted and he changed, so it didn't stay that same person throughout our relationship, and things got like much more complicated.
Has that shifted your thoughts on love bombing? Like, are you now for the rest of your life put off by love bombing?
Yeah, I think so. But I mean, I also haven't really encountered love bombing since then. So maybe it's just I would be more wary of it and walk away from it sooner, and just like feel suspicious of someone showing me too much attention, right? But I haven't had that really in the same kind of way since. So Even with my most recent ex, who still put me up on a pedestal, I didn't feel like he was love bombing me. So, yeah, there's. It can be hard to distinguish because sometimes, like as an autistic person, I get very excited and about someone new if I really like them. My excitement could come across as love bombing because my behavior with my ex-husband when we first got together could have come across as love bombing. Like I bought him gifts of things that I thought he would like DVDs of Doctor Who and stuff like that. So anything that like makes me excited seems like love bombing behavior.
Yeah.
And so it can be hard to distinguish of whether or not this is just genuine excitement that somebody has for the person, or if it comes from a place of trying to manipulate the person into really liking you. Because like for me, like the pace of it, right, is usually how you can tell if it's love bombing. But for me, fast pace is how autistic special interests kind of manifest for me. So I just get really excited really fast and want to dive deep straight away. So yeah, it can be, I think, very hard to distinguish. And I guess you have to.
Fascinating, actually. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
The similarities and how you say like it's just hard to distinguish between them.
Yeah.
I think the nuances are definitely there. Sometimes, obviously, in relationships, we walk in with rose tinted glasses and we can't really see what's in front of us, can we? So
yeah, I think what needs to be done is to dive deeply into understanding a person's motivations for things and what drives them, because if it comes from a place of like insecurity, probably more likely love bombing. If it comes from a place of just genuine excitement, probably less likely.
But also for somebody in your position, that's also hard to read between the lines.
Mm-hmm.
Are you just excited and you can't control yourself, or is this like either a conscious or subconscious manipulation tactic?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Exactly. All right, we have somebody in the chat who has left us some comments. We have a new viewer tonight, I think. At least Bill has
Hey, Bill Merck.
Bill has not chatted with us before. Thank you so much for watching.
Do you know Bill?
I don't. No,
Bill's a close friend of mine.
Okay, there you go.
Bill may have actually, Dominica, you may know Bill from Alaska.
Oh.
So
no way.
Bill is a poet from Juneau, Alaska.
Wow.
And during every Alaska State Improv Festival, he always volunteered doing various tasks and whatever for the festival. One of which was picking up people from the airport and driving them down to downtown Juneau. He was also box office manager. He did a lot of stuff for the festival. So you may know Bill and not know it.
Bill, leave us a comment if you remember seeing me at the Alaska State Improv Festival in 2017? 2018. I think it was 2018. My show was So You Want a Job. I don't remember meeting Bill. He was definitely not my driver because I remember who my driver was. But yeah, so Bill does have a comment for us to discuss, or a question. Can we talk a bit about the celebration of loss? That's a great question.
All right. So according to you two, how would you two describe a celebration of loss? What's your
my divorce? I genuinely celebrated it. Like,
yes.
Once it was official, I think I had like this was during the pandemic, so I had like a video, like an open video chat that anyone could join in and like, help me celebrate. It's like, woohoo, it's final. It's over. Woohoo.
Doggy is a free
house. Popping some wine, drinking that. I don't know, just like it was it was great to be out of that. It's still like a process. I still have some ties to him, with, you know, the property, for example. But once I sell the house and am able to pay him back his share, then that's another tie that's gone. And I'm like really looking forward to that. So yeah, every step in the process, every time that there's one less tie to him, I'm just like, oh, great. He's out of my life for this part now. And yeah, I have had so many celebrations about that sort of thing. Woo, I don't have to deal with him in this way anymore.
That's good.
In the spirit of the question, Bill, I hope I'm not divulging too much information here, but I'm going to tell your story, at least in part. I hope that's okay. Bill's wife and partner in life just passed away from dementia just a few months ago. And this last weekend, I was actually fortunate enough to go out to Portland and be a part of her celebration of life. So when Bill asks the question to talk about the celebration of loss, and Sherrod, you posed the question, what is our definition of the celebration of loss?
Interpretation, yeah, your interpretation.
Yeah. I think back to this last weekend of there were twice as many, if not more, twice as many expected people who came to celebrate Beth's life. And it was kind of an open mic situation where anyone who felt inspired could get up and say a few words about, you know, things that they love about Beth and her life, and just silly stories, and, you know, focusing on the wonderful, beautiful aspects of who she is, as opposed to focusing on the idea that, well, she's not here right now. So talking about the celebration of loss, it definitely has that excited connotation when you say, my divorce, to get out of that, like, and that loss is a good thing. But also in other people's cases who find themselves in the same situation as Bill, like there's dissonance there, that we can acknowledge and still be grateful. How trite is it to say, hey, well, let's quote Shakespeare, you know, it's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. Like, that's such a trite thing to say. But the truth of it is that it really genuinely is the substance of life that holds us together. It's what makes us who we are. For someone who has never loved, I think in people like that exist, but I think we can all point to at least one person in our lives that we have encountered somewhere along life's path, that we can point to this one person and say, I don't think they have ever really truly loved in their life. And it's sorrowful, and you can see the toll that takes on a person. So for all of us who have hopefully genuinely truly loved in some capacity, I'm not just referring to a romantic partner. There are so many aspects to real, genuine, and true love that we can hold on to and accept and grasp and grow from. I think those are the parts. And yeah, I said this to Bill over the weekend, but it still rings true. WandaVision, the very popular Marvel Studios television show. There's a scene in, I believe it's the last episode of the show, where Wanda and Vision, the two titular characters, are saying goodbye to each other for the last time. And Vision says to Wanda, what is love if not grief persevering? And grief is like that lingering grief, that perseverance of grief, I think is it's the byproduct showing us that we really did truly love, and that person can continue on in our life and in our hearts. And they're never really truly gone. They're not here right now. They're just not here right now.
Mm.
And I personally believe that whatever existence lies beyond this, that there will be joyous reunions. And I look forward to that.
Mike, Bill also says, tell the full story, my friend.
Yes. Well, Beth was born, and yeah. Anyway,
When I was a young whippersnapper, yeah.
what about you? What about you, Sharon?
Uh, that's a good question. I don't really know where to begin. I think for me, in it depends. I've experienced loss really in two segments. One when I fell ill, that changed my life drastically. And another one more recently, over the last few years, when I lost Shadow, the family dog, and the following year we lost my mum. And yeah, so that, like, those are always very, very tricky. But in terms of celebration of loss, I think that we think, well, for me anyway, it's the contributions that we had from those things that we've lost and the people that we've lost, how that impacted us. Like, for example, when I was recovering from my illness and we didn't think that I would ever walk again, I became so grateful for everything. Every time we would go out of the house, it would be very exhausting, even if it was just for a drive. And I appreciated everything, like the smell of freshly cut grass in the morning, and being able to like stick my head out the window and let the wind go past my hair, and just little things like that. And you know, I became very, very self conscious around me whenever like I was out and about. You see waiters and people in the service industry, everything they were doing, I could actually see them. You know what I mean? And I was just so grateful for them, for everything everyone does. Little things like, even when you see old people on a walk or something, I always make a point to talk to them because I understand how lonely things can be. And so in that way, I really celebrated, knowing that there were parts of me that I took for granted. And it's something that I think that we all in some ways take for granted, like the things that come easy in life. And as the cliche goes, you don't really miss them until it's gone. So in some ways I've learned that you have to always remember the little things and always embrace the little things because they might not always be there.
Well, that's also an interesting perspective, Sharon, because you're also coming at it with a bit of a double entendre, because given your illness, and I can never pronounce it. Can you say it once again, please?
Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Guillain-Barré syndrome.
Wanna die.
So, in two sentences, can you briefly describe what that
Right,
is?
sure. So Guillain-Barré syndrome is, with encephalitis for its full name, is an autoimmune disorder that, basically some foreign bacteria enters your bloodstream, and it tells your immune system. Well, I mean, it it distracts the immune system to the point where it doesn't know what is friend and what is foe, and so everything, your immune system will just start attacking everything in your body, including itself, to the point where it causes so much damage and everything breaks down. The best way I could describe it, was, the way the way a doctor in America explained to me was like, imagine your body, your nerves are like a series of roads, like a massive super highway, and every road you have in your body is broken to the point where no cars can go across in either direction. So when that happens, I had short-term memory loss. That was the encephalitis bit, the bonus. Um, I also could not move from the neck down. and I couldn't regulate my body temperature. I was always sweating, and yeah, so I was numb. I couldn't walk. I had to learn how to feed myself, how to bathe myself, and the intense physiotherapy, occupational therapy was a nightmare. But the good thing was, it really hit home every little thing that we take for granted. Being able to go out by yourself, being able to shower by yourself, feed yourself. Um, and it's definitely hit me that, we all, in some ways, we all have it so good, regardless of our social standings, economical standings. We all enjoy things some people don't even have for granted. And yeah, so it's all about celebrating each day, and you never know, because it might be your last.
Well, and I think that's why I asked you to. That's a perfect segue. Uh, why I asked you to briefly describe the disease.
Mhm.
Um, is that in and of itself is a double entendre, because you had lost mobility,
Mhm.
you had lost all kinds of different aspects
Yeah,
of
feeling,
your life.
sensation, everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Um, and even in that perspective, the celebration of being able to uh, enjoy the little things, or at least appreciate things that you were still able to have and do, I think that's an interesting perspective
It
there.
is. It is. Like I remember for a very long time, I was very angry, because I remember thinking, why did this happen to me? And I remember speaking to medical professionals in England, America, where I was at the time, back here in Malaysia, and all of them said the same thing. They were like, "Put it this way, kid, you won the lottery. You just got lucky." So in some ways it was tricky, because who could I blame for this? I couldn't blame myself. I couldn't blame whatever reason, and it
Yeah,
was just one of those things where it was just pure luck. That's all it was. Oh yeah.
interesting.
Mm.
Yeah. This is making me think more about, when you do have a loss that you maybe didn't want to have, I guess the celebration comes from the lessons that you learn from it, the memories of the great experiences that you had with that person, and how that kind of helped you grow as a person. So, like, sometimes the loss itself, the loss of someone that you really truly loved and did not want to lose, that loss can lead to growth, personal growth, and that is something that can be celebrated. And so that's how I would say my other kinds of losses, the heartbreaks that did actually matter to me, have I've been able to celebrate them in that kind of fashion. It's like, well, it did teach me this. It did lead to me growing in this particular way. So I can't like fault that person or fault that situation, because I am who I am now as a result of that. Um, yeah. And then the other idea that I had about the celebration of loss came when Mike was talking about the death aspect. I was thinking about when my mum was sick with cancer, and losing her. I guess the one like celebratory kind of thing is like, at least she's not in pain anymore. At least she's not going through all of the horrible crap that she was dealing with. At least she's not dealing with that anymore. So that's kind of like, the the highlight of the shitty situation. Yeah.
Actually, if I can piggyback off this is kind of reminded me about something. 2 nights before my mother passed up, apologies if I'm repeating the story. My mother told me when she was in the ICU that she saw my grandparents. And then my grandfather said, like, it's okay, it's time for you to come over, be with us. And she thought it was just a dream. And when she told me this, I was like, okay, all right, that's interesting. And then she told me the night before she passed that Shadow, our dog, he came to see her. And
Wow.
yeah, and like at first she was sleeping and she could hear his whining, and she looked down and at first she couldn't see anything, but then she started to see his chin on her bed with his tail wagging, and I'll never forget that. And she passed away the next morning. But I remember thinking, even though it could have been medication, it could have been hallucinations, what have you. But I like to think that this was my grandparents and the dog coming back for her to tell her that it was okay. And for the rest of my life, I will never forget that.
There are so
Yeah.
many,
Mm,
so many stories.
My it happened with my mum too.
yeah.
Yeah, her parents coming back and telling her it was okay.
My grandmother, both
Wow.
of my grandmothers actually.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it does give me hope that, I mean, there's a very, very good, I mean, how does one prove that there is a quote unquote afterlife, right? But I don't know. It gives me comfort to think that when they were at their end, there were people there that they loved to guide them through. So yeah,
Um,
that's
on
nice.
that note, I'm gonna look for a book. I'll be right back.
All
There,
right.
like what you said, Sharon, like how do you prove something like that?
Mhm.
I'm gonna look for a book that talks about that. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, like since we're on the subject, Dominica, have you ever had a near death experience yourself?
No, no,
No.
I don't know. I don't think so. Not that close anyway. Um, the closest they came maybe was driving into a ditch at too fast of a speed when I was trying to pull into a gas station.
Oh, jeez,
Um, which
that's terrifying.
fucked up the front of the car, but I was still able to drive it. So it's not like I was close to dying. I was not injured or anything in any particular way. So I wouldn't say that was really a near
That's still
death experience.
terrifying. I'm sure for the rest
It
of the
was.
day you were like,
Well, it was also nighttime, and I was on
oh,
my learner's permit at the time, so it wasn't like it was, like, but fortunately, it didn't stop me from wanting to get my driver's license. It was more like, there's a lesson here. Slow down more before making a turn.
yeah, maybe, maybe.
um, and what else? I don't know. I don't think that I've really had any close near death experiences.
I don't know. Like for me, I would say well, I mean, the two close calls I had was when I had this accident. I think I told you guys, but when I had that accident when I fell into the monsoon drain when I was 13, this happened and my arm was broken in two places, and yeah, so that was intense. And but yeah, but the second time was when I was in the hospital with my GBS, and
Yeah.
I think it was actually no, it was before that. It was just before when I was at my apartment, and I remember thinking, is this what death feels like? Because I literally did think I was going to die at one point. So, but yeah, it's really intriguing to think about the whole situation because I've heard somewhere that when people are near death, there's a state of euphoria. You know,
Mm.
your body goes into shock, and everything gets turned on, and that's where the hallucinations can come in.
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting to think about that.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, yeah.
Bill has a
Ooh.
comment about GB
Oh
syndrome. So
wow,
he says he has a great friend who continues to work through GB
wow,
syndrome in Juneau. Absolutely difficult. Miss people when they're gone, but enjoy them in their
very
going.
fair.
Yeah, I think when you have time to say goodbye to someone, it's a little bit easier to let go of them because you can process it. You have more time to process it, and you can say the things that you want to say that you know would not have the chance to say if they just like had died of a heart attack or something. So that makes it easier, I think. It's still obviously a loss when they go, and wish you could have more time with them, but I do feel like it's easier to process when you have that time to, talk about things beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, this can be very, very difficult because this reminds me of another instance. When a colleague of mine, when I was working for the engineering firm as a writer here in Malaysia, a colleague of mine, unfortunately, he was in a motorcycle accident. He passed away, and he and I worked together very, very closely for over a year. And I remember telling my colleagues at his funeral, where it was really, really tough because his whole family was there. They were all understandably a mess. And most of us colleagues got together, including with the head boss. And I remember just being really emotional, and just made me think, like, I was a dick to him for so many times, where I either told him off, or I didn't make time for him, or I got annoyed that he kept on pestering me with little things. And it made me think that, appreciate people when they're gone, but before they're gone, rather. Don't wait until it's the very, very last minute to make amends, because we don't know, like, when their last, or even your last, could be. Um, is there
Yeah.
a point to be holding, not grudges per se, but to leave that thing left unsaid? And yeah, so it comes to a point now where, for me anyway, I don't want to go through life leaving things left unsaid. If you want to say sorry to someone, say sorry to someone. If you want to tell someone, hey, listen, I miss hanging out, let's hang out, because you honestly never know.
Dude, that's exactly why, during COVID was one of the reasons I reached out to my ex after 5 years of not even trying, because I didn't want to leave things unsaid. Like, I'd been watching the Netflix Marvel series at the time, and I think it was maybe Luke Cage season 2 that, there was something that came up that was like, talked about extending an olive branch to someone. And I was like, yeah, I need to do that with this situation. Like, I need him to know that I would like to reconcile in a way, if that's possible. And and I didn't hear from him at the time, but it was one of the things that I think allowed us to reconnect a couple of years later, because I did try to reach out and comment on things. So yeah, I try to not leave things unsaid, even though, like, sometimes it's so hard, but at least I can feel like I won't die with any regrets if one or both of us dies unexpectedly.
I mean, that's the thing. When we're in our 20s, we all think that we're indestructible, and our barring grandparents or what have you, everything will be fine, right? And it's not until we get to that age where uh, life hits us, where things happen. Life just happens, and we become a lot more aware of how fragile life really is.
Mhm.
I mean, for heaven's sakes, I just had so the day I got back to New York from Portland, attending Beth's celebration of life, um, I found out that two guys I went to high school with passed away
Oh, dude.
one day after, one day apart from each other. Uh,
Wow.
I mean, we're only 42 years old. Uh,
Still very young.
so young, um, death, disease, pestilence, uh,
Accidents.
Yeah. Life.
accidents,
Life.
psychology, mental conditions,
Yeah.
disorders. It knows no age,
Yeah.
it knows no age. It's more, it seems, the cultural idea is that it seems more tragic when someone doesn't reach like 60s, 70s, 80s. But like no matter what age you are, it's always tragic. And death is no respecter of circumstance.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. It's
Yeah.
really interesting. I can't remember what show it was. I think I want to say it was Doctor Who, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. There was I'm not entirely too sure now, but there was an episode where uh, the Grim Reaper, Death, take someone with them to see a day in his life. And it's very, very interesting actually, because you see the Grim Reaper going to these people, and these people know, oh crap, like, it's death. And you see everything under the sun. You see them trying to barter, you see acceptance, you see anger, you see fear. um, and it's really interesting actually. It just makes you, and the person who's with death is like, how do you handle this every single day? And he's like, I've seen everything, but put it this way, it's my job to reassure them that everything will be okay, to take me with them into a better place. And I remember thinking, wow, because in my interpretation, whenever you see the Grim Reaper, it's something ominous, isn't it? It's like, the black hood with the scythe and everything.
Mm.
And in some instances, it could just be this harmless old man, or this beautiful tiny little girl who's just there to hold your hand and just say it's okay. That's it.
Did you guys ever read The Sandman or watch the Netflix television show?
I think that was
Yeah.
the show I was referring to. Yeah.
Yeah, it was making me think of Sandman too.
Yeah. Not Doctor Who.
Just that,
Because I was thinking.
that day in the life of where she takes her brother Dream. So Death and Dream kind of have like a buddy episode, if you will, where Dream is down on his luck. He's feeling useless, and has a lot of regrets about the way that things have transpired.
Mhm.
So his sister Death takes him around, and she goes, "Why don't you just come hang out with me for a while, for the day?" And the benevolence that Death offers sometimes it really is benevolent. I also work for the Department of Redundancy Department, but sometimes it's there's a panel in the comic where it starts off with Death and Dream meeting in this park in New York, and there's like these kids, and they're all playing soccer in this field and whatever. Then they spend the entire day going around town and taking who they need to take, and then they come back to the park, and there's in the background behind Death and Dream, one of the kids kicks a soccer ball into the street, and one of the kids goes to get the ball, and then in like the next panel, the kid comes back with the ball, and he goes, "Hey guys, let's continue on playing," and no one responds to him, and he's like, "Something's different. Why is something different?" And then Death walks up to him and says, "Hey, it's time for you to come with me." And it's just like this. The way that moment is portrayed is like the kid isn't scared. He's not grieving the loss of his own life. He's just like, huh. Like there was a comfort to it, there was a comfort to it. And I'm very much reminded, has anyone seen the interview with Jeremy Renner on a very recent podcast, of which I don't remember the name?
No.
There was a lot of stuff that came out about throughout this podcast. A lot of stuff about Marvel, a lot of stuff about Jeremy Renner, whatever. But he tells the story of when he was run over by the snowplow. What, 2 years ago now? Year and a half ago, whatever that was. Very tragic, crazy. Like he died. Jeremy Renner actually died. And then he was revived and brought back to life. And so the podcast interviewer asked him about this experience. And I've been thinking a lot about this for the past 2 days because it resonates. I wasn't able to find that book, by the way. But what Jeremy Renner talks about is the same thing of what this author talks about when he had a near-death experience. And countless other people when they have their near-death experiences. The podcaster asked him, so what's it like? What did you see? And Jeremy Renner was like, well, that's the thing. You don't see anything. You experience things. It's almost like in a dream. When you're dreaming, you don't see things. You just know they're there.
Mhm.
And he said there was this most overwhelming sense of love. And he said, I didn't want to come back. And it wasn't my choice not to come back. But I didn't want to come back because of this love, this feeling of pure, exuberant, um, just pure. I'm just going to keep using the word pure, this pure love that surrounded him. And he knew that he was safe. He knew that he was comfortable. He knew that he was home, whatever home is, whatever that means. He just felt like he was home and that everything was good and beautiful and just full of love. And ever since my dad died, I've kind of been on this journey to figure out like what lies beyond, what is the next step, and stuff like that. I a lot of these testimonials from people who have died and come back to life. Um, I'm hanging on to those words because they resonate a lot with me, and
It makes the idea of death a little less scary, I think.
yeah.
Bill is apologizing says, sorry to apparently hijack the conversation. Thanks so much for playing. You do not need to apologize, Bill. A big part of us doing this as a live stream is because we like to have the audience interaction, to draw more conversation out of us, and not just pull from the questions created by ChatGPT.
This is the point of this channel.
Yeah.
Bring it on, Bill.
Exactly. We love to have the audience interaction. All right. Shall we move on with the next question from ChatGPT?
Next question.
Do you believe in the one that got away, and why or why not?
It took me a moment to realize this was not a question from Bill.
No.
That's a different left field question.
What about you two?
I used to feel that way about my most recent ex. Look, I'm going to use the pseudonym that I've used for him before. I called him Lee in the past. So Lee is a Chinese Malaysian guy that I was involved with when I lived in Malaysia for a while. We were only together for a few months. Then when I moved here, he ghosted me, and then we didn't talk for over 9 years. And then when I went back to Malaysia, was when we were able to reconnect, and we got back together again for a few months. So I used to believe he was the one who got away because of that whole ghosting situation. It was like, if I hadn't moved here, the things could have worked out, and blah, 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 like all of this kind of thing. I don't feel like that about him now. I feel like the lessons that I've learned from it has been helpful for my experience and growth. I don't feel really the kind of desire to get back with him the way that I have in the past. There's still maybe some nostalgia associated with it. I wouldn't shy away from it if he decided to come back, but I'm not like he's the one who got away and I can't have a happy future with anyone else because I'm pining for this other person. But I guess that's where I'm at with things. Relationships that don't work out, usually there's a reason for it. If it works out again in the future, that's fine, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they got away in the past, and that you should have stayed together or anything, because there's usually a lot of growth that happens as a result of the end of that relationship, regardless of whether or not things work out between you two in the future.
For me, it was Kylie. Like, I always thought that she was the one who got away because we never got to develop a relationship. We never dated. And like I said, that relationship got to be ideally perfect because why wouldn't I imagine that? Since having that, since having that experience of cutting Kylie out of my life and moving on from that. And like I said before, she was never the one that I was supposed to end up with. As much as I believed it at the time, she was never the one that I was supposed to end up with. So for a while, yeah, I always pictured her as the one that got away, but also that's not exactly the spirit of what this question is asking either. Do you believe in the idea? That's how I interpret it. Do you believe in the idea of the one that got away? Well, sure. Of course I do. Of course I do. It's not true for me. It may have been true for a while, but it turns out that was a false truth. But it's very much true for other people, and it really is a romantic idea. The one who got away, the one that you never really got to have a real shot with.
Because you self-sabotage and ended things before you should have. And Shara, do you feel that way about Savannah that you talked about earlier?
Yeah, I mean, it's tricky, isn't it? Because I always do wonder, looking back on it, what if I fought harder? What if I made a point to not appear as, oh, I'm super cool, or the idea of premeditating when things are going to end, so I'm going to cut it off before we reach that point. So I think in terms with her, I do in some ways believe that we are often our own worst enemy. We get into our own heads too much, and we can't really leave until we're too late. Hindsight is 2020. But I do think that we'll always have that in our minds of the one that got away. But I do think that they're important because they help us maneuver our lives moving forward. Do we make the same mistake? I don't. 9 times out of 10, sometimes, if you want to self-sabotage, sometimes. But there are just as many times where you sidestep that issue and hopefully you move forward together. So it's something that we all have to learn, unfortunately.
Yeah. I feel like I'm so talking about Lee in this kind of context, it occurs to me that I'm like, one of the things that I've been thinking about and wondering, like, how do I approach this going forward is, like, I mentioned that I'm planning on relocating away from California. I didn't mention this on this stream, but in the last stream, what I said was I'm looking at relocating back to Malaysia. And as I mentioned, Lee is from Malaysia, so he's in the country. So I've had this fear that, like, if I make the plan to relocate back and then run into him while I'm there, which is likely because we, have a part of the same social circles, do I have to worry that he's going to think that I am moving back there because I want to get back with him? I just have to, I keep telling myself, it doesn't matter what he thinks, like whether, he thinks that's the reason or not. I know that is not why I'm doing it. Now, I can't predict how running into him is going to impact me and like how he'll react to it. Because I don't think that that's something I can prevent if I want to just be myself and go out to the things that I want to go out to, right? But at the end of the day, I'm just like, it doesn't matter how that goes down. In my heart, I know Malaysia is where I want to be. It's where I want to live. And I've wanted to, I never wanted to leave the country in the first place. It's one of the places in the world that feels like home to me. And now that I want to get out of the US, Malaysia feels more home to me than Australia does, which is where I was born, right? For anyone who
hang on,
have not been able to detect what accent I'm speaking. Malaysia just feels more like at home with me, and I don't want the fact that relationship ended and we're not on speaking terms to stop me from doing what feels right for me. But you know, if he decides that he is open to having a conversation with me once I move back, I'm not going to be like, no, fuck off, because that's not who I am. But I can't predict anything beyond that, and I'm not going to say, you know, that I'm back because I want a particular outcome. Like, I've detached from any particular outcome that I want with that. But I mean, absolutely, in the past, absolutely, I felt like he was the one who got away. But you know, getting back together, I was able to learn, you know, what I needed to learn from that situation and see, you know, sometimes you need to separate in order to learn the lessons that you need to learn from that. And sometimes things are not going to work out, but it doesn't mean that that relationship didn't have value. But yeah, in terms of how Mike kind of approached this, yeah, of course, there's situations where there's the one who got away, and usually it's because of self-sabotage.
True.
Because you didn't fight for the relationship as much as you could have, and neither did the other person. And then
I think that's the thing, when two people are just so scared of either breaking the other person or hurting themselves, they just think like, you know, I'll dip my toe in, but that's it. So it's a very, very it's a poor way to go about things, unfortunately.
I mean, I do feel like that's what happened with me and Lee as well, but I no longer feel like, oh, yeah, we should have been together. Like, things should have worked out. You know, things worked out the way that they needed to, and I learned the lessons that I needed to from it. So, you know,
yeah,
that's where I'm at with that now.
Friends, I think I might have one more question left in me.
Let's do it.
If that's okay with you.
Well, we'll see how. I mean, there are only 2 questions left, but we'll see how long it takes us. I only have 5 questions each time written by ChatGPT.
Let's get through.
We'll see how things go.
Yeah.
What's a lesson about love you wish you had learned earlier?
Don't be afraid to show it.
Yes. Yeah.
Again, like I'm just going back to the idea of, oh, it's cool to play coy. Don't show all your cards at once. But at the same time, I don't mean to love bomb someone. Please don't do that. Viewers, please don't love bomb someone. But it's just something where if when you appreciate something and you feel something, it doesn't hurt to tell the person. Obviously, there are times where you can be a bit overzealous and maybe potentially scare someone. You know, I mean, that has happened, I'm sure, to all of us at one point or another. But again, don't be afraid to show it. Like, if you appreciate spending the time with a certain someone, spend that time with someone. Don't play games. And yeah, at the end of the day, though, it's not about the people around you, your friends, your family. It's about you and that person. So just don't play games. Don't play games.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with that. I will also add, listen to your intuition when red flags come up.
That's another important one.
Yeah.
I would say learn how to think about how others are going to react to your manifestations of love, because they're not always going to be accepted in the way that you think.
Can you give us an example?
Oh, yeah. There was this girl that I fancied. We had gone on one date.
Ooh la la.
And just one date. And I took things way too far. I shared this story before on this channel, but I worked. I acquired a. Let's just say that I picked up
a lock of her hair.
Yeah, no, it was a stuffed animal. It was a stuffed animal, and I thought, oh, this would be really cute. And so I went to her apartment and asked her roommate to let me into her bedroom so that I could place this stuffed animal on her bed.
Yeah.
And to me, I just thought, like, all I could see was like, this is going to be the most romantic thing. She's going to come home and she's going to see this teddy bear or whatever it was on her bed, and she's just going to like, oh, she's going to fall for me so hard.
She's
And
mine.
say what?
She's mine. She's all mine.
And I never stopped to consider how she would receive that gesture. And let's just say she didn't take it well.
And that's why it was only one date.
Now we know.
Yep.
Bill has an answer to this question
Ooh,
for us as well.
what does Bill have to say?
Here we go. If you're going to love deeply and take the risk.
Yep,
I like that.
I like that. Definitely.
I agree.
All right. Last question.
Last question.
Last question.
Last question. How do you think men and women experience breakups differently?
This one is tricky because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. And I mean, when it comes to most relationships, usually 99 times out of 100, it's up to the women in terms of, okay, I'm forming this relationship or I'm going to break this relationship 99 times out of 100. Obviously, if
Might be a bit of an over
I
exaggeration.
would
Okay,
challenge
maybe-
that
maybe a little-
but
maybe- no, but
I
obviously-
understand the
but
spirit.
yeah, you understand, right? So, yeah. So, but in it's tricky because obviously breakups are something differently, but it's usually the woman, in my experience, that solidifies the relationship. Obviously, once she gives, well, like once she consents, the relationship is officially formed. That's what I mean by that. And in terms of breakups, it's tricky because. You know what? You know that age-old cheesy thing, like uh, women want sex, like they have to be in the mood for it. Men just need a time and a place. That's the old adage, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think because women, they don't really. I mean, women. I mean, most women I know, most women. Again, I'm not speaking for all of females in history, but they can, most of them can get a man relatively quickly or a partner relatively quickly. Men have to show their worth to attract a mate. So it's tricky, really, because in my experience, whenever I or my male friends, whenever we have experienced a breakup, we do tend to go a bit wild in the sense that we want to numb the pain. Let's go out and get shit faced with the boys and cause all kinds of mayhem and we bottle the emotions in, right? Women, in my experience, they do the opposite. They handle the emotions first and then they go out and later on. So it's very, very interesting. It's even though like we're so similar in many ways, we're just the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting, really. What about you two?
Yeah, I've heard that is like the most common kind of acceptance of how this kind of thing works. Like women handle the emotions immediately and then they process it and then they're able to eventually move on. Whereas guys tend to, pretend that everything is okay, think that they're going to easily find somebody else, and then after they've done with numbing all of their emotions, then the reality sits in and then they experience the regret and like, oh, fuck, I fucked up and now it's too late to do anything about it. I that's what I've heard is the more common way of dealing with things. I think attachment style can impact that though, because the avoidant attachment style is the shutting down, pretending things that are fine, and you can just get on with things. It's like a relief period of not having to worry about the relationship anymore. And then over time, then things come back. Whereas the anxious attachment style is more like, not wanting to accept that it's over and then chasing after it, trying to make things work and that sort of thing. And I think it seems to be more common that women have that anxious attachment style and men have the avoidant attachment style more frequently, which is, I think, why that perception seems to be kind of the reality of things. But I've talked about this before. Like, I have a fearful avoidant attachment style, which is kind of a combination of the two: anxious attachment and dismissive avoidant attachment. And so, like, during my most recent breakup with Lee, my initial process was in that avoidance, like, oh no, it's fine, like I'm going to accept this and things will be fine. And then like I went back and forth on things of like, no, it's terrible, I'm like crying and upset now, and now I want to make things work again. And then I will go back to like, no, like it is what it is. It's so hard to have like a cycle of going back and forth between those different things. Yeah,
for sure.
I don't really have much of an opinion on this, which is very anticlimactic. I had never really stopped to think about it before. And the points that you both had made about like men deal with pain, I don't know, men do the manifestations and then they deal with the emotions, whereas women deal with the emotions and then go through the manifestations. So I guess that like that seems resonant with me. I never stopped to think about it before. Based on casual observations, I think that's kind of the way that it goes. I once had a girl break up with me, and the following week, I found myself in Orlando hanging out with my best friend and his boyfriend at the time. And they were both like, well, let's go to the strip club. And I was like, fuck it, why not? And that was my first and only time at the strip club. So based on that experience, I'm like, well, yeah, I guess that's exactly kind of what we did. But yeah, I don't know. I don't have too many opinions about this because I think there are massive stereotypes, of course, that we can, pull experience from, but also everything is a case-by-case scenario,
Mm-hmm.
Some relationships, the men are the more tender, emotional ones. In
That's
other
right.
relationships, it's reversed. So, and then also, like, just because you are a person who is a little bit more tender or emotional or in touch with their feelings, doesn't mean that like you're on the same level of in touch with your emotions as anyone else. So like there's that whole scale as well. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I brought in the attachment theory aspect. Is like, yes, it might be more common in this kind of thing, but I think attachment theory has a lot more to say about how it's processed and stuff. Yeah.
I don't know. I think women are from Venus and men are from Mars.
There you go. Veritas is back and has left a comment for us as well.
Veritas!
So welcome back, Veritas. As Veritas says, women don't deal with breakups well, regardless of who initiated it. Men only get broken up about it when the girl breaks up with him. If he breaks up, he has already thought about it and is fine. What do you guys feel about that? That sounds, fairly accurate to me.
I think there's a lot of truth there.
Yeah.
Especially in the last sentiment of when a guy breaks up with a girl, Like he's already thought about it, and he's already moved on. It's just the paperwork needs to be signed, essentially.
Yeah. In my experience, it's not so much he's moved on in the sense that he has someone else already lined up, but he's moved on in terms of the relationship. He already knows. Yeah, we're done.
It's like, I'm done with this. It's that. Yeah, I definitely agree with the first part as well. Like I have initiated, a few breakups, I guess, and even the ones that I initiated were hard for me to deal with, because I will go through that like feeling guilty of like, was this the right decision? Am I doing the right thing? But I'm hurting this other person. Like there's all this guilt, like internal guilt tripping aspect of it, and then like wondering, like, well, maybe if I just stuck it out a little bit longer, then like he would get better and things would be fine. If I just like did this or that, like things could work out. Like I definitely agree with that aspect. Yeah. We have another comment from Bill.
Ooh.
Mike, you and I, my friend, breakups in the rear view mirror are what they are. Distant and gone. Keep looking forward with memory and respect for the past.
I like that. That's really good.
Well, because all of our past histories make us who we are now, right? If I didn't have, not just me, but like anyone, if we didn't have the experience of somebody punching us in the face, whether physically or emotionally, we wouldn't have the experience of recovering from that. And what did you learn from that recovery? What did you analyze about the moment that you got punched in the face? What led up to that? Because if that punch never happened, you could maybe that punch was a result of bad behavior on your part, right? So maybe you never would have learned the lesson to not be an asshole, which the punch in the face would be warranted. So like we all make really, really egregious mistakes with people, and hopefully you can recognize those mistakes that you make and then learn and then become the best version of yourself, or at least you are on the path to becoming the best version of yourself.
Nice.
Yeah. All right, one more comment from Veritas here. If a man breaks up with a woman, he doesn't really think about her or care how she feels. I think women want the guy to want her still, to be miserable about it. It throws them off when you don't care. Yes. At least that's been my experience. Even if I don't give a shit about the guy anymore, I still want him to be heartbroken about it.
I will push back on the first half of that. If a man breaks up with a woman, he doesn't really think about her or care how she feels. That has not been my experience, just speaking for myself. With very, very few exceptions, I always want to be friends with my exes. And, I got together with them because I like them as people, like as a human being. I like the person that you are. And I don't stop that level of care for who they are. I just don't want to continue on a romantic relationship with them. So, while it is of the times that I have broken up with my girlfriends in the past, I have emotionally moved on before I made before I actually mentioned it to them and said, "Hey, so we're gonna break up." I do it just like that. Just kidding. But I do very much care.
You've adjusted the relationship that you have with the person, but you don't stop caring about them.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
Now they may stop caring about me. It's just like in the second part of this, like they still want me to be miserable.
You have no control over that.
I get it.
It's really interesting. I remember I had a school trip when we were 16, 17 that went to Russia, and I had me and a girl on this trip. We formed this romantic relationship, this little fling. And I remember we got back home to Malaysia, and she's like, "Listen, I don't think we should be a couple." And I remember just looking at her, smiling, just going, "No worries." And I literally high fived her. That's what I did. I high-fived. And I remember her just. I can still remember her face. Her face was just like that. And I remember she looked really angry. She's like, you can at least be upset about it." And I was like, "I'm off to go I'm off to hang out with the boys. I'll see you later." That's it. And to this day, I can still remember her just boiling, steaming, and I was just like, la, 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 la.
She broke up with you. You
Yeah.
were happy about it, and that made her miserable.
Yeah.
God,
I want to turn this question or comment on the reverse. Have you ever broken up with someone and wanted her to be miserable about it, or are you just?
No.
In my experience, if I've ended things with someone, I wanted them to. I wished for them to be well, wanted the best for them, and there was no malice on my part. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I really genuinely don't think I ever have.
Mm.
Yeah. I suppose for me it depends on who it is and how the breakup happened, I guess. But even if I don't want them in the moment to be miserable, I still want them to miss me at least later on. I want them to still be thinking about me, like, oh man, just those memories are so good. Because I feel like that,
I think we all do that to a certain extent, don't we? Like at least for a week, right? Depending on how long the relationship lasted. But yeah, I do think that there's those residuals of like, oh, I want to call Stacy. Oh, what am I doing? No, we broke up. No, I don't want to do that.
All right, next comment from Mike. If you need to leave before I get through all the comments, just let me know, okay?
How many do we have?
Veritas has left us a few more.
We'll see.
So he says, when a girl breaks up with a guy, there's a couple different flavors of guys. There's some mopey ones who beg and are most emotionally messed up.
Mm-hmm.
I think most might feel immediate sadness or loss, but seem to accept reality more quickly and move on. Like he said, fuck it, let's hit the strip club.
I'd agree with that. Yeah.
When I say care how she feels, I don't mean he has no concern for her or she doesn't matter. He feels bad to some degree, but he is over the relationship, and what they do now doesn't concern them. Would you say that was how you would describe that, Mike?
Yep. Mm-hmm. There was before we move on to this one, there was this girl that I was dating, Tina, I think was her name, and she was 10 years older than me, which I didn't really care about the age difference.
Nice.
But nice. Cougar town. No, she was really cool. Like, she was really fun. I know, right? And I took her to New York Comic-Con, and I was so excited to go. I was so excited to bring her along. And while we were at con in New York, just walking around, and I was like showing her this, and she was like, "Well, what is that? I don't understand what that is." And I'm like, "I don't know either." Right? Because for anyone who's at Comic-Con, there's a lot of stuff to look at. There's a lot to experience. Anyway, throughout the course of that day, I realized I don't think we're the same people. And like the longer I stay in this relationship, and I felt so bad. And so I got really weird towards the end of the day. And when we left con and we were walking home, she was like, "What's going on with you? You're getting really weird." And like, she totally called me out. And I'm like,
was she trying to hold your hand and you were like,
no.
I don't think so.
No. I can't. Oh, this is so long ago. I don't remember all the specifics, but I do remember we were in Penn Station. We found like a little corridor that nobody was walking around, and so we just hid in this little corridor, and we sat on the floor, and I laid it all out, and I'm like, I don't think we should date anymore. And she's like, why not? And I'm like, I can't give an explanation. I was trying to be the good guy, and I was trying to spare her feelings, but I couldn't give definitive answers. It was like one of the worst breakups in history. It was, I mishandled
It's
that.
not you, it's me. I'm sorry.
I think I just kept saying that over and over and over again. So, yeah. Oh, going back to a previous question of what's something that you wish that you learned earlier in life to bring into relationships, know how to break up with someone.
Yes.
God, it's so hard. Yeah. And handle it in a way where you're not leaving the person thinking, but things could have worked out.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you're ending it like it's like, I can't give you what you need. It's like, what
It's
the
not
fuck?
you, it's me. Yeah.
That is, you know. Yes, you can. You do, like, if you asked me. Yeah. All right. The next couple of comments are connected from Veritas. So compared to a girl who's still wanting the guy to want them, the guy doesn't care if she wants him or not. Honestly, if she still wants him, it maybe opens a potential easy hookup to a guy. Sad, but true. No malice. Best wishes moving forward. And Mike, your backdrop is outstanding.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah.
Very good.
Maybe I need to take down these sheets again and have my backdrop at least for a couple of weeks before I take down my Lego sets and prepare it for moving.
Yeah, man.
You have some real incredible Lego sets.
Yeah.
Really incredible.
I will do that for next week. So I've been thinking about how I need to take down this stuff and pack up the whole shebang so it's not like in the way as I'm preparing my house for open houses in the future.
When you move to Malaysia, how are you going to safely transport all of your Legos?
That's the thing. Like this is why I've this is why I'm emotionally exhausted right now, because my mind keeps thinking like, what's the best way to handle all of this stuff?
It's literally on the opposite side of the world.
Last night I packed up all of my minifigures into Ziploc bags and like sorted them into like, these are my Disney minifigures, these are my Muppets minifigures, and a few other kind of licensed minifigures that I had, and then my Marvel minifigures are in another one, and then I have like a bigger Ziploc bag for all of my random like non-licensed minifigures that I've collected. And then, but like my bigger sets, I'm just like, I don't want to completely dismantle them, but I might take them away, like down in parts.
What about like the looser, like the things that might like fall off or break, so to speak? What if you just super glued them on?
Oh no, I'm not. Nah, I can't.
No. Oh,
No. I will not do that. But I will probably get more like plastic containers that have like the snap-on lids, so that they won't like open randomly as they're being transported. And let's see. Sorry, I got distracted because I realized that the last two comments that I put up were 5 different people. Anyway, so I do have some plastic crates already that I can fit things in, but like one of the good things about some of the bigger sets is that they're built in a way that they are easily dismantleable, so that you can have like one floor at a time. And so I'll probably like wrap them in, paper or bubble wrap or whatever, so that they are more compact. So even if they break, the pieces will be together, and it'll be easier to put them back together afterwards, rather than having to rebuild the whole thing. I am planning on, so my Lego has an app for keeping all of your instructions together. And
Nice.
I want to try and pull it up so I can, why is it working like that? That's weird. It's like, why is it sideways landscape right now? But I don't want to be doing that. So I have some of my manuals in this app right now, and I need to add more of them to it because it'll be easier to use the virtual manual if I need to do it for putting it back together. And that's what I did for making sure that one of my some of my sets had been in my daughter's room, and she had knocked some of them down and broken some of them. So I just today have reassembled some of them to make sure that they weren't missing any pieces, right? And oh man, this one Jurassic Park set that I had, the pieces were spread throughout her whole room in different places, and I'm pretty sure I found all the pieces now. I was able to put it back together, but I'm so glad that the instructions for that one was on the app on my phone already. So I could just like skim through and make sure that I had all the correct pieces.
It's time consuming too.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my plan. I have a lot of botanical sets as well. So the ones that have pots at the bottom, the flowers and stuff are kind of inserted in them. So I'll probably take the flowers and stems out and wrap those separately, and then the pot separately, so that it'll be easier to put back together afterwards.
Sounds like a metaphor if ever.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Unintentional. So yeah. So that's kind of, like I said, a lot of my, like, here's the Owen Grady. from even this motorcycle had been like taken apart partially. I was like, why is that so cool that it falls apart even? Like, anyway, so that was another part that Huh? What? I am not going to super glue them. No. Can't.
Well then.
I can't. So yeah, so I will get rid of this backdrop so that we have some Lego for next.
Ooh, why don't you take some saran wrap and then a heat gun, and then heat gun the saran wrap all over your Legos so it's all like shrink wrapped.
Will it stay there, or is it easy to get off again after that?
Nope.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that then.
Worth a shot.
Yeah.
Well, I am going to have to go because my eyes are like involuntarily.
I need to get ready for
all good, guys. Look, we are at almost the 2-hour mark, which is what we're trying to do for these streams now. Anyway, I don't have any new topics for the upcoming episodes, so feel free to drop some suggestions in the comments and I'll ask ChatGPT for some questions for us on those topics. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we'll do another one of these episodes next week. Don't know what day yet. Probably Thursday, US time, Friday, Malaysian time. And we might also, we've discussed the possibility of doing another media topic to discuss the movie Heretic. Potentially at some point as well. So
I just wrote a sketch about
that.
Did you? Indeed. Ooh, wow.
I'll show it to you.
Okay.
Cool.
So yeah, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, so you can find out when we're going to be live again. I usually put up the information in advance about when we're going to live stream next. So subscribing to the channel and checking it out is the best way to find out the exact time that we're going to be live next for this show, Real Talk with a Vulnerable Angel and Friends, or another one, because sometimes I do other ones as well. And hit the likes to hopefully send this out to other people. Share the video and the stream and the channel with other people that you think might be interested. We love to have audience interacting with us. And yeah, until next time, we'll see what